This is Shawn Michaels, former WWE Superstars, and you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com.
All right, we are back, and we're joined by Playboy Buddy Rose. Welcome to In Your Head.
How you doing, guys?
I'm doing good.
Doing good.
I'm doing great, too. I'm on the West Coast. Where are you guys at?
I'm on Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, brother, right up there, is it a little northwest of Boston?
Actually, it's would be south of Boston. It's
South of Boston, off the 95?
You know that little cape? It's a little, like the little arm on the Massachusetts.
Well, that's kind of funny because I'm eating cod tonight.
Ah, excellent.
They're making about a couple pounds of cod. I love cod.
Cool. And
I'm going to eat up the city, and I'm going to have it in real life, and we're going to have a nice talk here on the internet on your show here about a lot of things, whatever you want to talk about.
all right. And Inchman, tell them where you're from.
No, I'm in West Virginia. I don't think we have any fine dishes here except for, like, maybe roadkill.
Oh, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Huntington.
That's Huntington, West Virginia. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was there one time for the WWF, so I do know you exist. Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Well, WWF, they used to have the Cape Cod Coliseum. Well, Vince McMahon used to have it.
Right.
It's not, right now, well, we used to be Cape Cod Coliseum. Now it's a warehouse for the Christmas tree shop.
Okay.
But let everybody know that you're going to be at the WrestleFanFest, which is going to be October 19th, the 20th, and the 21st. And that's going to be...
Wrong.
Well, Thursday is going to be the night with Buddy Rose, but on the website, I guess for everybody else, it's going to be the 19th, the 20th, and 21st.
October 18th to the 21st.
Oh, okay.
It does say the 19th on the site, but when it's updated, it'll say the 18th.
All right. I thought maybe that was like a special thing, was the Thursday night's going to be a night with Buddy Rose.
Well, I am doing a Q&A on Thursday night. Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday, there's going to be wrestling, I think, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. As the weeks go on, I'm here to plug the WrestleFanFest to everybody to let them know that Chris, the promoter, that the show is going to have 3 wrestling shows, and there's going to be like 3 wrestling rings, and it's going to just to open up your calendar in the middle of October and basically try to be in San Francisco to see all the living legends that are still performing and or can partake in the Q&As and autograph sessions for all the fans to see once again.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to get your tickets and everything, the website's WrestleFanFest.com. We get a caller here right now. Who is this?
Hey, it's Jason.
Oh, you're on air with Playboy Buddy Rose. You have a question?
That I do.
Jason, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
You got a question? Where do you live?
Where do I live? I live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, so you're across the country from me.
That I am. If you don't mind, I have 2 questions now. I just thought of one of them.
Go ahead.
My first question was, what was it like to legitimately give up your car to Piper and you lost your yellow canary, as he calls it, to him in a match?
Oh, okay. Great question. It's funny you even know about that. But thank God to the internet, everybody can bring back the memories. He bought my car from me for $5,000. Because, wrestling, we all know it's sports entertainment now, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he bought my car from me, and I sold it to him for $5,000.
Very cool. And
that's how that worked. But nobody knew that. The only way he could buy it from me is we had to put it up for the hair match so the people would think he won it.
Right.
But because back in those days, we didn't expose the business.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You got another question there, Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious what it was like to come back and work XPW in the early 2000s.
What was that like?
Yeah.
It was all right. They were doing ridiculous things, but they paid me very good. They gave me a first-class ticket and my guarantee that I asked for. But, yeah, they were going off the charts. I was managing Steve Rosano, but I have to say that a lot of the things they were doing were taking a toll on these kids' bodies. And basically the guy that ran the promotion was a porn star. He owned a porn company, one of the biggest ones in the country.
Mm-hmm. Rob Black.
Rob Black, yeah. And he was a big mark to wrestling, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he grew up watching me wrestle. He grew up on the East Coast, I think in the New York area or Boston area or Rochester, New York or Syracuse, somewhere back east as a kid. And then he went out to L.A. and opened up a porn business, and then he got into the wrestling business.
Do you think he got a bad name right away just because it was associated with him?
That I got a bad name?
No, the company itself. That's some people wouldn't some people wouldn't respect it, I guess.
Well, XPW's not even around anymore, is it?
No.
Mm-mm.
Right. He made a little niche in wrestling. He got his little niche. He got a little scratch. He had an itch. He scratched it, and basically the itch went away, and he went away. And he's very well off from the porn business, and so that's for what it's worth. If you want to know about it, I'm doing my own book right now, and I'll talk about those days with working for Rob Black, and basically, no, he was more for. Wrestling was a hobby, and the porn business was a serious business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else, Jason?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm glad to see that Larry Sweeney's living out the legacy.
Okay, who's Larry Sweeney?
Oh.
Oh, we had Larry Sweeney on. He mentions you quite a bit.
Who's Larry Sweeney?
Sweet and Sour Larry Sweeney. He's an independent wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the man.
Oh.
Oh,
All right.
I apologize then.
When you're talking about you didn't expose the business back then, was it hard when people started to really when wrestling really became open and there was no more kayfabe? Was it hard adjusting to that?
After Vince McMahon made the big announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why he did that? Don't you?
Well, yeah, mostly to save on so the wrestling would be regulated.
No, so he could get rid of the regulations and the commissions, because he said, I'm sports entertainment, I'm not a real sport, so he didn't want to have to pay the 6%.
Right.
To the states that regulate it. Like Oregon and Washington take 6% when he comes out here of the gate, right off the top.
I mean, was it hard, though, was it hard for you and the other wrestlers to when fans started to know what that wrestling was sports entertainment?
Yes and no, because basically, no matter even if they're smart, everybody there's a bunch of wrestling boards. Everybody is basically a fan that thinks they're smart until they've done it. Like I listened to your interview with Nick Bockwinkel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said to you guys, I'll give you a free body slam. In fact, I'll give you 50% off, and I'll just slam you from 3 feet instead of 6 feet, and then tell me if you think it's real or not. Until you've done it, you don't know what it's like. And I'm 54 years old. I'm diabetic now. My numbers are perfect, though. I've been diabetic for 9 years, and I have perfect blood pressure. Everything's good. I lived through the storm of all the wrestlers that we lost. God bless wrestler souls. But I got to say that no matter what wrestler says, was that real blood or did you cut yourself? I go, here's a knife or here's a razor blade, cut yourself. And they go, no, I won't do it. So until they've done it and they've lived it and done it 7 nights a week and went through the training camp that I went through with Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson, the same as Ric Flair, Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, the Iron Sheik, all of us, Sergeant Slaughter, we all went through the toughest wrestling camp in the world. Until you paid your dues and really done that, nobody's going to respect what you did. And that's how I was taught in Minnesota. The AWA was a wrestling territory, and you had to learn how to wrestle. If you didn't know how to wrestle, you didn't get in.
Mm-hmm. Do you use some of the stuff that you learned, from Vern Gagne in his wrestling school and your wrestling school?
Yeah, I teach stuff that we learned a lot. Yes, I do. But we do not beat the hell out of the kids like we got the hell beaten out of us, because if we did, we wouldn't have any students.
Right. I guess nowadays there'd be a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah, because there was 100 students the first day at my school with Sergeant Slaughter and Chris Taylor and myself. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
97 of them quit the first day after Vern Gagne beat the hell out of about 10 of them.
Right. Did it get easier at all after that? Do you think it was to weed out the people, or was it pretty much that way the whole time?
It was hard all the way through. Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson beat that. We did 500 squats, 500 sit-ups, 500 push-ups, and then we had to wrestle amateur for about an hour, and then we had to run up and down hills, tumble up and down hills, carry each other on each other's shoulders up and down hills. It was like going in Navy SEAL team.
We get a caller here. Who is this? Oh, sorry, man.
Hey, it's Krista.
Oh, we got Chris here. You're on Where with Buddy.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, I was wondering how you came up with the nickname Playboy.
I got it from Fritz Von Erich in Dallas, Texas, after I trained his son, Kevin Von Erich, the only surviving son of the family. I had his first match. It was my last match as Paul Hirschman in Dallas. I was going to Portland, Oregon, and I was in Corpus Christi, Texas, and Terry Funk said, "You need another name besides Paul Hirschman to draw money." And I said, "You're right." And he says, "I go to Portland a lot to defend the World Championship." He goes, "It's the Rose City. Goes Rose, Bobby Rose, Billy Rose." Well, I like Buddy Wolf, so I used the name Buddy, so Buddy Rose. And then Fritz Von Erich gave me the name Playboy because he said, "What do you like to do?" I said, "I like girls, I like gambling, I like Las Vegas." He says, "Playboy." And so it's what stuck. And I asked Gary Hart, who was Playboy Gary Hart at the time, if I could take the name that Fritz just gave me. And he said, "Yeah, because I'm never going to Portland. Go ahead and take it, and you have my blessing." And I've had it my whole life.
Okay, Chris, you got anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering who came up with the diet gimmick.
I did, with Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart and I came up with the blow-away diet.
Are you surprised that they get over so well and like people still remember it?
Yeah, they do. A lot, because I went to the ring with a scale that said 217. It was stuck on 217. And then I went with the Hugh Hefner wearing like pajamas and a robe, and then I take it all off, and then I'd be in my wrestling gear, and I'd still do my one-arm push-ups. I'd still come up to my feet, and I'd still never forget Vince McMahon coming in the dressing room at a TV when we got our booking sheets and got our airplane tickets for the next 10 days. He'd say to everybody, "I want everybody to go to the gym except Buddy Rose. Buddy Rose is an all-around athlete. He can play hockey, baseball. He can do it all. I don't want him looking all chiseled and everything. He can stay like he is, but everybody else has to go to the gym." And Vince was at the gym with them all working out. Vince Jr.
Right.
1990, 91, 1982 and 83, when I came in to work against Backlund and Pedro Morales, Vince Sr. was the boss.
What would you say the difference is between like working for Vince Sr. and Vince Jr.?
Vince Sr., there was really the only difference was Vince Sr. was the boss then, and Vince Jr. was, of course, the announcer. And Vince, they both treated me good. I have nothing bad to say about it. Both paid me very well. I was in the first WrestleMania match ever. And the thing is, Vince Sr. wasn't planning on going worldwide at the time. Vince Jr., after his dad passed away, it's needless to say, is the guy that wanted to go to the office at 8 o'clock in the morning and work till midnight, 7 nights a week. And if you're going to be dedicated that much to the business to do that, WrestleMania was the do or die for him to be able to do what he did. And I was the very first main event that went to the West Coast against Bob Backlund back in the early 80s. And Ray Stevens was the second main event because I was the one in L.A. at the Olympic Auditorium. At the Sports Arena, L.A. Sports Arena, and then we were in the Sports Arena in San Diego, and Ray Stevens wrestled Bob Backlund the second night we were on the West Coast. And I wrestled, I think, Pedro Morales.
You got any other questions there, Chris?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you still watch the product today, and what do you think of it?
Yeah, I still watch. I like to watch my old buddy Shawn Michaels, who I helped out when he first started, when he was 21 years old. Shawn Michaels, and I go to some of the shows when they come to the Portland area, to the Rose Garden. I got a suite there, so I just take a lot of my students to the shows, and I've got them tryouts, and I got one of my students got to work on a Raw and a SmackDown, and so basically I can open the door for a lot of kids because I can go down early and say hello to all the guys, and I see a lot of them at different reunions that I go to, like when I went to the WrestleMania 20 reunion, or when I go to autograph sessions around the country. I run into a lot of the wrestlers, or I talk to them via telephone or emails.
Do you think the Simon Dean character was a rip-off of your gimmick?
The what character?
The Simon Dean character.
It was a Simon Dean, and he was selling like the Simon system.
No, I don't see any of my gimmick in that at all.
I think one of our fans would know who. What you think would sell better, the Simon system or the blow-away diet? Blow-away diet was just to be funny and be entertaining. It was not.
in fact, the phone number we gave them was honest to God to the Hershey Company, the 1-800-BLOWAWAY, 1-800-LARD, or what it LARD asked. It actually went to the Hershey Company, and the Hershey Company called up. We're getting so many phone calls. You guys got to change that number.
Right.
It was hilarious. It went right to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Chris.
Thanks.
Yep. When Chris called in during on his 13th birthday and got a special birthday wish from Baron von Raschke.
Oh, yeah, I know Baron Jim Raschke since I was a kid. And then I knew him after I got into wrestling. A very nice man that lives in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I grew up. Yeah.
We get another call here. I think he's got some phone problems here. Who is this?
Who?
The caller?
Me?
Yep.
Yeah, you.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was a caller from the phone. It's LTNA fan. All
right. You on Earth Buddy Rose? You got a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions. My first question is, you were trained by Billy Robson, as you said. But more especially, the question is about Billy Robinson. What do you thought of him, of Billy Robinson? And I don't know. This is the second part of the question. I don't know if you had experience in Japan, wrestling in Japan.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, what do you think is the difference between wrestling in the U.S. and wrestling in Japan?
Okay, in Japan, the people are completely silent, and they applaud great wrestling or some kind of a great spot or something very aggressive. Otherwise, they don't make a sound. It's really hard to get them to react. I got them to react to the craziest things. Just when I took out my robe, when I take my robe off and then I go to fold it, they were like, they would top for that. And I was like, that is weird. And when you're wrestling your opponent, they're real quiet. All you can hear is just our feet in the ring and the sound of the, when we hit the turnbuckle. If you took a hard turnbuckle, you could hear the people go, ooh,
Oh, like that, yeah.
And if I was wrestling Inoki, I went over there 5 times, 5 weeks at a time, and over the years in the 80s. And I went there in 1975 for Baba, for Vern Gagne. And basically, I was over there with Dusty Rhodes and Abdullah the Butcher and Dynamite Kid and Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith and Jim Neidhart. I was Hulk Hogan. I was tag team with him over there after he won the world title in WWF. And we were teamed up in Okinawa, Japan. I got a video of that still. And they're a lot stiffer over there. What I mean by stiff, they're a little more snug. And then in the U.S., they're basically over here. I was probably well known as one of the most believable workers, but you never felt me. And I'll tell you who would endorse that is Shawn Michaels. Will tell you that his 2 easiest matches of his life were Ric Flair and Buddy Rose, because he says he never felt us and the people believed everything we were doing. And Shawn Michaels is a night off himself.
Yep. In Japan, it's more of a respect thing. They are silent in respect to the athletes. They do in many other sports as well.
Yeah, they do. They're very respectful over there and everything. But there's no, you don't see any idiots or people acting like the fans do here, and they don't go as crazy as the fans do here. But you'd have to be in Japan to really live it and see it every single night to basically learn how to use the psychology in the ring to get them to pop.
Was it harder to work in front of them since they didn't react to everything you were doing? Unless it was like something big where they would clap?
Yes, I'll give you an example. I met with Abdullah the Butcher or Dusty Rhodes, and I swear to God, we're tag teaming, and you couldn't get a pop until like maybe Abdullah was backing up to do his elbow drop, and the people knew that the elbow was coming, and that was going to be the finish, and you'd hear him roar just to see him going back to do the elbow, and Abdullah the Butcher get up there, 5 feet in the air and drop that big elbow, and people just go, whoa, and then it'd be 1, 2, 3, and same for Dusty Rhodes, too. Honest to God, there was one time I was there in 75, and Dick Byers was wrestling as a destroyer, and he was yelling out a high spot to the Japanese guy in English, and Dick Murdoch is standing in the back with Dusty Rhodes and myself and Doug Summers, and I'm like 22, 23 years old. I'm 54 now, but Dick Murdoch yells out, "Kayfabe!" to Dick Byers, and then he yells back, "The people don't speak English. They don't know what I'm saying." It was hilarious.
Well, thanks for calling in, LTNA fan. Did you have another question? Or?
I just had one more quick question.
Right.
You were talking about WrestleMania. It's just a quick question. You were talking about WrestleMania 1. Do you thought the question is about WrestleMania 1? Do you thought that WrestleMania would work and it would be as big as the show is right now, and it would have the legacy that he has right now?
Nobody was for sure. I flew in the day before, and I spent the night in New Jersey, and then I just took, my ride over to the building because it started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on that Sunday, that very first WrestleMania. Because I flew home with Roddy Piper right after the show. We were on the same plane, and we got home at 10:30 at night into Portland, Oregon, and through Minneapolis. And I just remember us making a 5 o'clock flight out of there and getting home at like 10:30 after it stopped in Minneapolis and Spokane. But seeing Vince run around and yell Liberace, Muhammad Ali, you're on, and watching all that, he was very nervous, and a lot of wrestlers were trying to calm Vince down, telling him, don't worry, you're going to do good, and there's going to be a WrestleMania 2, and Vince was like, are you serious? And he goes, I think you look at the crowd out there, and look, I think you're going to do good, and I think you're going to have a lot of WrestleManias. And by the end of the night, Vince kind of figured the same thing, but there were wrestlers that were actually telling Vince to calm down. Everything was fine, and he doesn't have to, because that was his do or die baby that day. If it didn't do good, that was the end of the big expansion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thanks for calling in, LTNA fan. He called in for Portugal. Thanks for calling in, man.
Portugal! Wow.
Yeah. All right, we actually got another caller here. Who is this? Thanks
for calling in. Is that good or bad? We're doing good.
Oh yeah, very good. Very good. The calls just keep coming in. Who is the caller now? Oh, he hung up.
Okay.
Which I probably shouldn't even mention. Let everybody know you can check out your website at playboybuddyrose.com.
Right.
What do you got up on there? You got some wrestling figures? You got anything for sale?
No, I already sold. Let me tell you something. Bobby Heenan said it best to me. He said, if your stuff's just sitting in the closet collecting dust, you can put that stuff on eBay and make a ton of money.
Right.
I put my robes and my pajamas, things that I wore in 1990, and a robe I wore there. I sold one robe for $10,000, and I sold my action figures I had a box full of them with the sticker still on them, and they sold for like $1,500 each. And one guy in Salt Lake City was worth like $36 million. He was 36 years old, and he flew out here to Portland, Oregon, and bought a lot of stuff from me and paid me in cash. And basically, I made like $50,000 in about 2 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, I was just sitting in the closet collecting dust, and I told Bobby Heenan, I said that was the greatest advice you ever gave me. I said, because I still would have been hanging in the closet because I'm not going to do anything with it. My trash is somebody else's treasure.
Right. Sorry.
When you see Gene Simmons on Family Jewels sneeze and his wife, not his wife, but when Shannon Tweed goes, one of those boogers just landed on your leg, he goes, eBay.
Right.
So people out there don't buy it.
Yeah, plus, it's someone else, they're probably happy to have it, Make someone's day.
One guy, like I told you, the guy that, he used to work for eBay in the fraudulent department, and he lives in Salt Lake City. He flew all the way to Portland, and I met him by the airport in a suite at a hotel, and I bought a lot of stuff to him, and he bought everything from me, and he didn't mind paying for it at all. And he opened up a museum in Salt Lake City, outside of Salt Lake, and I was his third favorite wrestler he ever liked to watch when he was a kid. And whoever thought that when he bought into eBay, he bought into the stocks before they split, and then when the stocks split, he became a millionaire in his late 20s, and he's 36 years old when I met him.
Wow.
And he's set for life.
What did you think about when you first saw like your action figure?
I didn't. I just thought dollars. I don't really care.
Right.
Remco's the one that was doing it. We all got like $10,000 up front, and then you get a percentage of the dolls you sell. So I was like, that's great. I go to any store I went to, you see your doll, but I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, cool, all right, but I was thinking about the money. Just like a title belt didn't mean nothing to me. I had a lot of titles. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to make the money because the title's just a prop.
Right.
You know what I mean? And anybody can have a belt. everybody, the guy you were wrestling was making the same money as you. And or if I was going against the champion, I was going to make the same money. So I didn't care. I just wanted to make money.
I got another call here. Who is this?
Jack.
Oh, hey, Jack. You're on there with Buddy Rose. You got a question?
Yeah, buddy. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, boss?
Doing good. Hey, I'm here from Seattle, and I was curious, what was it like teaming up with Jesse Ventura, our governor?
Ah, cool.
Hey, that's a great question. I knew Jesse was just a fan. He wanted me to introduce him to Superstar Billy Graham because that was his idol when in Minneapolis. I was in the Minneapolis Auditorium wrestling one night, and I came out, and he had a great body, and he already had his hair bleached blonde, and he wanted to get into wrestling. He was trained by Eddie Sharkey. And I couldn't get him in because he didn't go through the Vern Gagne camp. I'd already been in a couple of years, and I told Billy Graham, there's a guy out there who looks just like you, and Billy Graham went out and talked to him. He says, yeah, I saw him. And so Jesse was kind of a miniature Billy Graham. And then all of a sudden I went to Wrestle in Dallas, Texas, out of Minneapolis. And then I went to Portland. The first night in Portland, I'm teamed up with the kid named Jesse Ventura, and I go, hey, you got in the business. And him and I wrestled against Snuka and Dutch Savage my very first night as Playboy Buddy Rose, and we won the Northwest Tag Team titles, and we had a run for about a year, and then we did a split, and then I beat him in the loser league town, sent him back to Minneapolis, and then he became governor, and the moral of the story is if he'd have lost, if he'd have beat me, I'd have gone back to Minneapolis, so I've been the governor of Minnesota.
Excellent.
No, I made good money with Jesse, and it was a good run, and we sold out the whole summer, which normally doesn't do good in the Northwest because we only have 3 good months of sunshine out here, otherwise it's raining. But we sold out all through the summer against each other. He was the good guy, and I was the bad guy. And then eventually I beat him in a loser league town.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, sir, Jack?
Yeah.
Jack?
Hello?
Oh, we got a new caller. Who is this?
Hi, this is Mary Angel.
Hi.
Mary.
Hi, I'm calling from Panama City, Florida, and I have a and I was in Cali in '78, and I watched Playboy Buddy Rose wrestle at the Cow Palace when he had his U.S. belt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to say that I'm a real big fan of his, and it brought back a lot of memories of listening to him tonight on the radio, and I did have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What benefits and disadvantages do today's wrestlers face in the world of professional wrestling?
Okay. Very good question. Mary Angel, is that it? Mary Angel?
Yes.
That's a very pretty name. Mary Angel, the answer to that question is the difference between today and yesteryear is we were working off a percentage at the gate back when I was wrestling full-time in the early 70s to the 80s and the 90s, and now they're on guaranteed contracts, and there's only one territory. Basically, the major one is WWE, and then you got the minor leagues, the TNA. But you got guaranteed contracts, and you basically, if you get hurt, you still get paid if you get hurt on the job. Where when you got hurt back in the day, if you got hurt and you were off a couple weeks, you didn't get paid. And
I understand.
But it really is not as glorious as you think it is in the WWE today. And to be brutally honest, there's a lot of wrestlers, and I'm very respectful to all of them, and I see them all the time. But there's a lot of them that I've been at autograph sessions with, and that maybe I got to freelance to do an autograph session away from their contract, and they told me that they couldn't believe that they got that autograph session, that it really helped them because they said traveling town to town, they're only making $60,000 a year. And I was like, oh my God. They said, how do you make it on $60,000 a year? They said after rent the car and paying for their hotels, they said they didn't have much left. And I'm talking about some of the divas and some of the basic wrestlers that are there, without not counting the top selected few that are on the $1 million contracts or that are making $400,000 or $500,000 a year. There's like 10 or 12 guys that are on that deal, and then the rest of the guys, about 80% of them are on $60,000 or less. So that's not too good. So there is a big difference, but I still respect that they love the business enough to stay in it and do what they do the best that they can every single night, and that's the way I was taught in our day, in front of 50 people or 50,000 people, to work as hard as you could. and that's what I did.
Well, I appreciate you answering my question. And did I hear you say that you were writing a book? Could you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, I am writing a tell-all book. I'm going to be as professional as the other wrestlers about it. I have my own stories. I have my own stories about my drug problems, and that I went to rehab, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I never did drugs till I was 29 years old, and I that was a downfall for me. I should never have done them, and a lot of wrestlers did them. I'm not going to tell on any of the other wrestlers that did it, because I've never read a book about another wrestler. I've read excerpts from different wrestlers, like maybe a couple chapter or two, just to see what they had to say, because I basically know what everybody did back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because I lived with them all, and we are a fraternity, and we're a family till the day we die. And I'm not going to put anybody in jail, or I'm not going to get anybody divorced over telling some silly story about what they did or what I did. And I don't want, I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to push the envelope, but I'm not going to take anybody down with me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest and upfront, and I hope that this book is out by August, and I'm doing it with Matt Farmer. He lives in the Tacoma area, and Matt Farmer wrestles too, and he's very good. And I was going to also with Matt Farmer and Scott Teal.
Scott Teal, yeah.
Get the publishing rights to it.
Mm-hmm. He did the J.J. Dillon book and Ole Anderson. Yeah.
Right. Teal was very happy to work with Matt Farmer on this, and I hope to have it out by August. And then I would like to bring it down to the WrestleFanFest down in San Francisco, October 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, and sell the book down there.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Mary Angel, are you going to make the FanFest?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely am going to do my best to make it there.
Oh, excellent.
Mary, I tell you to come to my room, but I already got a Teresa Joyner coming out. And my wife's not here right now, so I got to make sure she's in the archive show.
Well, maybe you could come to intro in our room,
Well, Playboy.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you answering my questions. I hope you have a great night, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people trying to get on. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for calling in.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Come up and say hello to me, Mary, when you come to San Francisco.
Okay, I promise I will.
All right. Good night. Thank you for calling.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Earlier you talked about Shawn Michaels. People still talk about those matches, still remember them. What did you think at the time when they were going on? Did you know, this was really good stuff?
I knew right away when I worked with him when I went to Minneapolis. Him and Marty Jannetty were a tag team, and Ed Wiskowski is a very good friend of mine, and he was Colonel De Beers at the time, and he was my favorite tag team partner because we were the World Tag Team Champions on the West Coast for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I asked Ed, I said, geez, I ended up being with Doug Summers, who was a great worker too, but Doug and I both were the bleach blondes, so Vern put us both together, and we had Sherry Martel as our valet, and hell of a gal too. She's going to be at the WrestleFanFest. And the thing about, I wanted Ed Wiskowski really as my partner because I never had a better partner than Ed. But he was in the middle of an angle with Jimmy Snuka, who we got into the AWA. Both him and I were the ones that put the word in for Jimmy to get him into the AWA because he had left New York after the problems that happened in New York. And Snuka and I go way back to the early 70s and with Ed Wiskowski. And it just, when he got in the ring, I said to Ed, what's this, because Ed was there before I was. I said, Ed, what's Michaels and Jannetty, what are they like? And he said, they know everything you call. They know what to do, and they know how to do it, and they're naturals. And I was like, great. And he said they're a night off, too. And I was like, great. And so basically the program I did for the whole year with them, anything I called, they just knew how to do it, and they were excited to work every single night, and they worked their asses off. I bought the best out of them. They bought the best out of me and Doug, and basically it was a great run. And a lot of people remember the bloodbath in Las Vegas and a lot of the matches that we were on the ESPN network at the time.
Mm-hmm. Have you? Yeah, go on.
Shawn Michaels remembers that it was a great run too. It was his first big push.
Mm-hmm. Well, was he thankful to you, afterwards?
Well, I got a picture hanging right here on my wall. It's from Shawn Michaels when we were in Dallas, Texas 2 years ago doing an autograph session. It says, "Buddy, you were you were truly very inspirational in the I'm trying to read the exact words here from a distance. You were inspirational in my success in professional wrestling in the early part of my career and the rest of my career. Thank you very much for everything. Love, Shawn Michaels, HBK.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I've got one from Terry Von Erich saying that those were some of the best years of his life when I trained him and wrestled him. And then I got one from Jimmy Hart, one from Stacy Keibler, and Missy Hyatt, and a few others that are around the room here. Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant. It's kind of like a little museum right here in the computer room.
Cool. So you still collect stuff. Is there some of the stuff that you had like in the closet you decided to sell on eBay?
Some of the better pictures I like that my wife put in frames, and we just hung them up in this one room. Because when you walk in my house, you wouldn't know unless you came in the computer room. You wouldn't know about the wrestling unless you came into it's when the cable guy comes to the house, or the DirecTV, when they come to the house and put in a TiVo or something, they go, holy cow, look at all this stuff. And they just go crazy, and they know who I am when they come. I can't go anywhere in the Northwest because everybody knows who I am.
Right. Yeah,
that's okay, but everybody's very nice and respectful. They always go, thanks for the memories, or I'm standing in line at any store or any place, or walking through a mall, or just anywhere at a stoplight. Somebody will say, roll your window down, because I drive a Lincoln Town Car, and I got DirecTV in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I got, I can get anything I get at home. I get HBO, everything, a perfect picture anywhere in the country. And so people will actually tell me to roll down my window and just say, hey, thanks for the memories. And they're very respectful out here.
Well, that's cool. Have you seen the AWA DVD that WWE put up?
Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah, I've been on the 24/7 network a lot of times, and for like a month at a time in a lot of different matches. And it's funny, it's because I'm out of wrestling, I'm still on TV all the time. I'm like, even when you get out, you still get on there because they give you that publicity, and when they play your videos from the days from the 80s and the 70s, there you are, and it's like you're back up on a DVD, and you're on a 24/7 network that they refurbished the tape, and they got the tape, and it looks great, and it looks like it was just done yesterday.
Yeah, a whole new generation gets to see,
stuff that the younger generation gets to see the old school wrestling.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's when wrestling was like Pat Patterson said, remember when it was 4 lights in a ring, kid? And I said, yep. He said, now look at it. It's all bells and whistles.
Right.
You go to a Raw, Monday Night Raw, and you see an hour and 40 minutes of interviews, and you see 20 minutes of wrestling. In our day, you saw an hour and 40 minutes of wrestling and 20 minutes of interviews.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the interviews now? They say most of them are scripted. Would you?
Yeah. If you've got to use a script, I'll give you another Shawn Michaels story. I was with him at the Rose Garden about a year ago, and I said, Shawn, what is the deal? Everybody's practicing in the ring in the afternoon. He goes, I know. He goes, they wanted me to practice with Chris Benoit, and I said, it's not in my contract. I said, I know how to work. And I just burst out laughing. I burst out. It sounds like a Woody Woodpecker. I said, Shawn, are you still there?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing some kind of a connection.
Oh, I didn't know what that was. I thought that was something you were doing.
No, I'm hearing it sounds like a Woody Woodpecker.
Yeah, right. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, I never heard that one before.
Shawn was talking to Ed Wiskowski and I in the back during the catering time, and we were down there talking to everybody, and I was saying, Shawn, are you going to go out there and practice? He says, no, I don't have to. And because in the day when we wrestled, I didn't see my opponents sometimes till I got in the ring. Whether I flew in or I drove in or I got there by anything that smokes, a bus or a train, whenever I got to the building, I didn't see my opponent till I got in the ring. I just knew who was going to win and who was going to lose. Nobody told me how to get from point A to point Z. I just knew the finish, and then we just played it. Because when you got a script, it's the worst frickin' thing you can have. And even today, because if you're driving, it's like driving a car. If you're scripted to go down a certain road, and you got to turn the other road, and you got to go on the other road, but you got an audience watching, you can't change directions if you know it's not working. Right. So when you're working a match and you're telling a story and you're using psychology and you know how to do all that stuff like Bob Orton Jr., Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, basically the guys that I grew up with and worked with. When you know how to do that, you can change directions in the middle of a match and make the people buy what you're doing. And you can take them and steer them any direction you want. And that's just being a great wrestler, and that's how you do it. And today when they do a script, if they're not buying it, and the guys only can go by the script, the fans aren't going to get into it, and they're just, they're going to get popcorn, they're going to do whatever. And you can't change directions because you've got to follow a script.
Mm-hmm. Do you got a question from the board, Incher?
I was actually wondering about the Portland footage. Does any of it still exist?
I have the most footage of any Portland wrestling there is, along with a friend of mine named Rich Patterson, who works for the Portland Trailblazers. We put together as many refurbished tapes as we could because Don Owens, the promoter back in the 60s, for 60 years, never taped over another tape. He taped over every tape week to week, a TV, and they were house shows too. We did Portland 72 times a year. We had Portland specials on a Tuesday night, but every Saturday night was a TV taping and a house show. And if he would have saved the library of those shows instead of saying, Jesus Christ, it cost me $60, he'd go to keep it taped. He said, I'm just going to tape over it. He taped over it just like San Francisco did and just like Mike LaBelle did in L.A. They taped over all their old tapes, and there's no history except for the ones I taped on a VHS machine back in the early 70s, middle 70s on. Mm-hmm. And then we try to save that and preserve it and then put it on DVD, and then we sell it that way. And basically, that's all we can do because nobody else saved it. And Don Owens, I know it was promoting was a hobby to him. Cattle ranching was his business, right. And that was his big. He was a multi-millionaire, one of the richest men in Oregon, but wrestling was just a hobby to him, and promoting.
One of our fans here, Brad, he wants to know how influential was Don Owen in the wrestling business and in your career.
He was. It's not that he was influential. The ones that were influential to me were the wrestlers that came before me and paved the road for me to be able to wrestle, and my Vern Gagnes and the Billy Robinsons and all the wrestlers. I used to like to watch Blackjack Lanza when I was like 17, 18, 19, just watching him and Bobby Heenan. And then to actually be his tag team partner against the high flyers, Jim Brunzell and Greg Gagne, was like, that was kind of neat to me. I thought that was kind of cool. But I wanted to be a baseball player or a hockey player because I skated against the Winterhawks in 1982, and I skated against the 5 fastest ones, and they all went into the NHL, and I beat one of them from one end of the ice to the other, and I got it on tape. And then they all went to the NHL, and then I wanted to also play professional baseball when I was a kid, and I tried out for the Twins when I was 18 years old, and I made it. There was a 3-day tryout, and I made it to the 3rd day, but there was like thousands of people trying out. But I didn't make it to the final 50. I was a center fielder, and I was right on. I was hitting the ball good and all that stuff, but I didn't know I was going to get into wrestling, and I ended up making it in professional wrestling after I got trained by Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson, where only a selected few people made it through those wrestling camps.
Where would you say Vern Gagne would rank in the all-time great trainers? Because a lot of names came out. One of the best.
I mean, because he was 47 years old when he trained me, and I'm 54 now, and he was in great shape. And I mean, Vern Gagne was not afraid. I mean, he said he'd go on TV and said, he didn't charge a dime. He only wanted 10% of what you made for the first 5 years, and that was okay with us because if you didn't make it, you didn't cost you nothing. If you did make it, you were guaranteed to wrestle because he had to book you. And then he'd book you, and then you'd wrestle around his AWA territory, and then you just have to kick back 10%, which is a tax write-off. But it was a learning experience, and you were learning the first couple of years. Like I said, the first 2 or 3 years I was in Minneapolis, and I went down to Dallas, and then I got my big break on my 3rd year out here in Portland. I had a chance to go to Charlotte and or Portland, but I was told in Portland, if you go there, you're home every night, and they're short trips. Mm-hmm. If you go to Charlotte, you're on the road 5 nights a week, and you're not home. And I was like, I'll take Portland.
Do you think
and that's what I did. And I came out here, and I made more money than anybody in the history of the Northwest. And I paved a road here that nobody will ever surpass that record. It's kind of like the Hulk Hogan of New York. I broke all the records here in Portland, and I made the most money ever, and I got a guarantee. And basically, I was ready to leave a couple times, and Don Owens gave me a guarantee that I couldn't turn down, so I wouldn't go to the WWF or Charlotte or anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Did they ever offer you a contract, the WWF, before you went back there?
No, WWF. After I stayed for a couple more years on the guarantee with Don Owens, I said I got to go to WWF because they were making $8 to $10 grand a week in the WWF back then in '82, and I wanted to make $160,000 in 6 months, you know. Mm-hmm. So I said I'll take the WWF, and she worked 90 some days in a row, but I was 29 years old then, and I could do it, and I was in great shape. I worked hard every single night, and I had a great run with Bob Backlund and Pedro Morales and or Snuka and or Butsky and or I'm just trying to think of some of the other wrestlers. Those were the 4 basic guys I worked with every single night. I took Curt Hennig with me, by the way. God rest his soul. Curt Hennig came out to Portland from Minneapolis. Rick Martel called me up and said, give this guy a break. And I did an angle with Curt right off the bat to get him a push. And he was the #1 babyface. Then when I went to New York, I took Curt with me for the 6-month run. When I went to New York, he went with me the same exact 6 months I was there. Mm-hmm. And then they were just grooming him basically to bring him back in the future. And I can never forget Curt Hennig calling me up and saying, hey, buddy, you wouldn't believe it. They found a gimmick for me. And I go, what's your gimmick? They said, the same one as yours. I said, what, Playboy? He says, no, Mr. Perfect. He said, I'm the all-around athlete that can do anything perfect. And he said, kind of like what you were doing. I said, oh, great. And he was just so happy on the phone to tell me the news.
Yeah, that's cool. Can you still do the one-arm push-ups?
Yeah, I can't do the nip-ups no more, but I could do them at 335 pounds. I could do them every night in 1990, 91. I did them in every town, every single night. And my opponents couldn't even do them. The guys that were in great shape or chiseled, they couldn't do it. Shawn Michaels could do it. Marty could do it. But there were wrestlers that I go, when I do the nip-up, you do one and get a double pop, and they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And then they were in great shape, too.
To Roddy Piper recently? So I saw on your website, you have a... Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago. His cancer's down to 1 centimeter. It was like 6 inches long, and the cancer that they found, and he was really, like, fighting a serious fight there. And, it's not over yet, but he's on the mend, and he's one of my best friends, and I've done a couple one-man shows with him, and he's a great guy and he's always been my friend since the early 70s. We've known each other about 36 years. And we both made our homes out here in the Northwest. And basically, Roddy Piper, his cancer is down to like 1 centimeter, and he's really happy about beating this thing. And I think everybody out there, all their support and everybody's support really helped a lot. And this was the biggest shoot that Roddy Piper ever went through in his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know he was at it was like a fan fest in Texas recently for horror movies. So
right.
Hopefully he's doing better. Yeah.
He just did a movie for I think it was MTV, and then he got asked to do he's doing another movie coming up pretty quick too. So he's done like 26 movies over his lifetime since 1987 when he did They Live and Hell Comes to Frogtown, which he'd probably kill me for saying the name of that. Did you see that one?
Oh, it's a fine film.
Not proud of that one. Oh my God. He said that movie, but he liked the John Carpenter's They Live that did $20 million in the first 3 days. Mm-hmm. But no, he made his niche in Hollywood, and he's still, like he said, it was like starting over in wrestling. He went to acting school, and he said, man, it was dog eat dog to try to get in, make it in that business. But he did a lot of B movies, and they all made it to Blockbuster and or somewhere, but he still gets residuals all the time. He's always making money.
Mm-hmm. And he was good in all those movies.
Yes, he was. I mean, he'd worked with Billy Blanks and Shannon Tweed and Andrew Dice Clay, but he's a lead character in a lot of the B movies he did. He said he'd like to have done, his A movie was like They Live, but he would like to have done more A movies. I think he's as good as Mark Wahlberg and or some of these guys that are in Ocean's 11, the young kids.
Right.
Or the one that just came out, The Departed. I think Roddy would have been good in any of those movies. As good as the actors they got in there.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any good Piper stories outside of the ring?
Yeah, I got a lot of Roddy Piper stories. Some kayfabe ones, and I got some, bad ones, happy ones. Which ones do you want to hear?
A funny one would be good.
Funny one?
Yeah.
I can probably tell you a funny one. Let's see. Roddy and I, we were wrestling in a cage match in Albany, Oregon, and I had a nice tan. I'd just come back from Hawaii in 1981, I think it was, end of 1980, and was wearing white tights, and the special referee was Red Bastien, and he had a mouthful of chew, and Roddy was in on the joke with Red Bastien, and I didn't know what was going to be the rib, but he was giving us the instructions. Red was doing the full instruction thing, like brought us to the middle of the ring, and as you know, Roddy and I broke all the records that we had, like sellouts nonstop for quite a few months here in the Northwest when he came here, and this particular night in Albany, Red had Bastien had a mouthful of chew, and I had the tan and the white tights, and he was checking my tights around the back, and he dropped the chew down the back of my tights. Roddy kicked me in the ass, and the chew went right through the tights because I didn't wear any underwear ever. So right through my tights, it looked like I had a big shit stain. And laughing their asses off, I'm laughing. The fans are laughing. I'm trying to climb over the cage to get out. They're shooting to keep me in, and I'm trying to really get out for real, but they're not hurting me. They're just laughing their asses off. The fans, we all broke kayfabe. We just burst out laughing, all of us. Obviously, we got juice and did the whole thing and finished it off, but we never forgot that night. There was one other night I was driving down the road with Rick Martel, Roddy Piper, Ed Wiskowski, myself. We've been on the road for 110 straight days, and we had to go to Coos Bay. We were like about, I can say it now because both promoters have passed away. We were about 100, we'd driven about 80 miles, and I was then driving my van, and I looked at Roddy in the back. I said, hey, we were wrestling each other, Roddy and Rick against Ed and I said, what if I said we broke down and we took the night off and went home and took our girlfriends out and had a night out at the movies and dinner and didn't have to work tonight? Because we're on for another 90 days after tonight, too. And they said, we took a vote, and we all voted yes. I pulled over, grabbed a payphone, called the building, told Elton Owens we broke down. Just tell the fans the airplane we were on got canceled or something. Well, come to find out, the show ended up being a good house, and there was no ring. No ring ever showed up. So the guys wrestled on mats, and it was Johnny Boyd, one of the Kangaroos. About 6 wrestlers showed up, and we didn't show. We went back home, and like Roddy said, he never missed a show in his life. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't because of drugs or anything like that. We just went home because we were so tired from being on the road. It was a 200-mile trip and 200 miles back, which isn't that far, really. But we were burnt out. We wanted a night off, and we just wanted to go home. We basically kicked it, went home and had dinner, and went to our own families, and we basically got a good night's sleep, and then we were all batteries were recharged. We went another 90 days without any days off. But that was a funny night, too.
Yeah. Probably.
Roddy's a great guy, and Red Bastien and all of us, we all go back to the early 70s, and Red Bastien helped Roddy and I a lot throughout the business, and Roddy's helped me, and I helped Roddy a lot. Roddy was in L.A. I was the U.S. champion in San Francisco, and I went to L.A., and I told Roddy, why don't you come up to Portland? I says, what are you making here a week? He told me, I said, you can make more in Portland. He said, man, if I jump ships, I want to make sure the next ship I get on is sailing just as good, if not better. I said, I guarantee you'll make more. And he came up to Portland, and boom, he was a babyface up there. He was a heel down in L.A., but he came up to Portland, went babyface with Killer Brooks against Ed and I, and we made money for a couple of years there, nothing but sellout shows, you know.
Mm-hmm. Another caller here. Who is this?
This is Tex. How you doing, Jack?
Good. You're on there with Buddy Rose. You got a question?
Yes, I have a couple of... Oh, hello, Playboy Buddy Rose. How you doing?
All right, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine. I had a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
My first one is, what is your opinion of the financial and organizational status of the AWA during 1986 and 1987?
Okay, I would say it was on the downfall. I made okay. I got to say, Vern treated Ed Wiskowski and I lived together in an apartment right by the airport, and he paid for our rent because we still lived in Vancouver, Washington, both Ed and I. We flew into Portland, and we just lived like 10 minutes from Portland Airport. But we were still living on the West Coast, our wives and our family. But we would work the AWA, and Vern still took care of us. If we had 3 days, remember the AWA only worked about 3 days a week. So you had 4 days off a lot of times. If you had 4 days off, Vern would pay our trams home to go home, and then we'd fly back to the town we had to go into the next time, and then we'd work it and then go back and stay at our apartment in Minneapolis, and then we'd go and we'd just work the the AWA territory, and Vern would pay for our rent-a-car, too, because we didn't bring our cars to the AWA. He paid for a Lincoln Town Car from Budget Rent-a-Car because we got it for $99 a week, and Vern would cut us a check for that, too. So it was a good deal. The rent-a-car was unlimited miles, and so we didn't even have to use our own car. We had a heck of a deal, and I think it was about working 3 days a week, and I still made about $60,000, you know. So it was easy money.
Anything else there, Spec Son?
Yes, also had another question. Did you ever speak with the late crippler Ray Stevens during the late 1980s? And if so, what was your opinion of him?
Yeah, I did. I talked to him in the AWA. It was his idea to come up with the bloodbath in Las Vegas. He wanted all four of us to get juice, and I was the one that suggested that to Ray. He was kind of helping doing the booking in the office, and I suggested to Ray that I wanted to be. I never got beat by the Rockers. It was always Doug got beat. My deal was when I went in that I was never going to get pinned, and I made that deal before I went in. But you had to understand why I did it. It was a psychological reason, because even though we'd lose as a tag team in non-title matches, and Ray Stevens understood this, and I learned it from Ray and Nick and all these guys in the day. As long as they were beating Doug Summers and they couldn't beat me, they still couldn't get that satisfaction. The fans of like, oh, the Rockers finally beat Buddy Rose and Doug Summers. And so, if you look at any tapes and or videos of us, you'll never see me getting pinned by any of them. When we went to do the four-way juice, I told Ray Stevens, can I go without getting juice? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm the first guy to get juice. I've gotten juice over 1,000 times, you know, in my life. Not over 1,000, but at least 500 times in my life. I'm not afraid of it at all. I mean, when it's called for, you need it. But I said, if I don't get the juice in this tag match, we're going to have more heat at the end of this tag match, because I never get pinned and I didn't get juice, but I'll have a lot of blood on me from them, but I'm still not going to get juice. What do you think, Ray? And Ray Stevens says, I agree. Let's go without the juice with you, but the other three will get juice. And he agreed with me, and I just, you know, Ray Stevens was a genius and was a great worker. And so I just got to say, Ray Stevens, as Bobby Heenan and anybody that tagged up with him, or Backlund, or anybody that worked with him in the San Francisco days, it's too bad he wasn't alive, because he'd probably be the biggest legend you could bring out to San Francisco, because he is the San Francisco treat. But the guy was an icon in wrestling. He lived every day like Christmas. He went down. He lived every day like on motorcycles. He could ride horses and take down a steer, and you know, just like at a rodeo. I mean, he'd be a great performer there at a rodeo. He was a legitimate tough guy, but he was in the ring. He was just like kid gloves. He treated you like kid gloves. Can I tell you a Ray Stevens story?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I was in New York tag team with him. In 82, 83, he came in New York, and it was the most money he said he ever made. And same for myself. And we're in New York, and I'm sitting there, and I'm tagging up against Snuka and Pedro Morales against Ray Stevens and myself in Rochester, New York. And Ray Stevens says, kid, you're going to have to take all the bumps tonight. He says, I'm getting too old for this. I said, I got you, Ray. I got your back. I can take them. So, boom, we go out there, and I'm taking all these bumps on this comeback. And son of a gun, if Ray says, tag me, I tag him. He goes in and takes twice as high of a peel, twice as high of a backdrop, twice as high of his, he goes up to the top rope, gets slammed off the top. I try to do it. I do it, no problem, but he goes higher, and I'm like, we get to the back, and I said, I thought you told me to take all the bumps. You were getting old, and you wanted to take it easy. He says, I still got it, kid. And I was like, no. I mean, to watch him still fly through the air like a gazelle, like the days when I was 18, 19, watching him with Backlund and Stevens in the AWA, it was when they were the World Tag Team Champions. To see him do that and take the fans to another level, I was like, you know, I thought I knew a lot, and then I said, man, you never stop learning in this business. And I said, when we got back to the dressing room, Ray Stevens just burst out in a big laugh, and we hugged Rocky and we hugged Snuka, and we said thanks for the match, but they just looked at Ray like, man, you are unbelievable. And he was one of the best ever to step foot in a ring. To me, the best ever that I ever saw, though, personally, in my life, wrestle in a ring, and there's a lot of great ones, from Terry Funk to the Briscoes to Dory to Nick and Ray and Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson and Red Bastien. They were all great. But the best worker I ever saw, attention to detail, and I'm a kind of guy that was attention to detail, was Bob Orton Jr. To me, he could have been the AWA World Champion, the NWA World Champion or the WWF Champion on any given day or time of his career. He was that great. And I said that at the CAC, and I'll say it in my book, and I'll say it on the air here. Bob Orton Jr., to me, was one of the best wrestlers ever put on this planet that stepped into a square circle. And he bought out the best in his opponents. And I stole a lot of psychology and a lot of stuff that he did. I brought it back to the Northwest when I saw him, because he was in the WWF the same time I was in 82, 83, getting the same push I was. And I learned a lot from that guy, and I never saw anybody perform night after night like him. I would even be done for the night and showered, and I would stay and watch his match because I was in awe. And I normally am not in awe of other people like that, but I was like, I just wanted to get to my room and just go back and go eat and go back to my room and be done for the night. If Orton was still on after me, I wanted to watch it. Even if I'd seen that match the night before, I wanted to see it again because I couldn't believe what he could do in the ring and how attention to detail he was.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about his son, Randy Orton?
I think he's great. It's just, he's a chip off the old block. I don't think he's got the niche quite that his dad has. And like I talked to Bob, and I tagged with Bob in Tampa about a year and a half ago in a Tampa reunion with Ed Wiskowski against Roddy Piper and Jimmy Snuka and Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant. And Bob Orton Jr., I remember him, I said, what did you tell your kid when he got in the business? Because I know you learned a lot from your dad. What did you tell your kid? I said to my kid, I said, kid, I'll do his voice. He said, kid, Randy, whatever I did, do just the opposite. And it's like, oh, Jesus. He says, yeah, I told my wife and I told my kid, I says, whatever I did, don't do what I did, do just the opposite. He meant like, don't do drugs and keep yourself clean.
Right.
Randy's had some bouts with some certain, like Barry Bonds and the steroid, deal. I never did a steroid in my life. If I did a steroid, I'd have been 600 pounds. But I never did go to the gym to lift weights either. I wasn't a weightlifter. I was just an all-around natural athlete. Mm-hmm. But this thing about Bob Orton Jr. and Randy Orton, I just got to say, Cowboy Bob Orton Sr. was a great worker, but Bob Orton Jr. was a better worker. And then Randy will, I think, eventually be like his dad. He's pretty attention to detail, but Randy is getting a great break at a young age, and he's going to be a multi-millionaire and retired and live happily ever after if he doesn't get hurt.
Well, you got anything else there, Spec Son?
Yes, I'd just like to tell Playboy Buddy Rose that I'm a huge admirer of his work. He was one of my favorite performers during the late 80s. And thank you very much for taking my 2 calls.
Well, thanks a lot for calling in. We appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the people that respect what we did because, like I said, it wasn't easy. It was a hard job. The easiest part was the wrestling. The hardest part was getting up in the morning and making it to getting on a plane and then going from Minneapolis to Honolulu, back to Duluth, Minnesota the next night, and you're only in Honolulu for 5 hours. I'm like, my God. Or to fly to Tokyo and then jump in the ring and hurry up and wrestle. I'm like, sometimes you usually get a day off when you get there, but sometimes you get there and you got to go right to the building. I'm like, you're just 15 hours off a plane and you're a zombie. But the wrestling was like the easiest part. The traveling was because I'm kind of glad I'm not in it now because these poor kids today that are wrestling all over the country, like Curt Hennig used to tell me after that 9/11, that was bullcrap because he had to take off his cowboy boots and all the 2-hour advance check-in. We used to go in the day when you had to be at the airplane just 5 minutes before the airplane took off.
Right.
Plus we used to drive down the road 100 miles an hour. It's a wonder we weren't killed on a jet or a plane the way we drove or the way we ran in the day in the 70s and 80s. We ran hard, and it's a wonder that more wrestlers weren't killed just from that. Mm-hmm. We're lucky we survived through the storm, and I call it the storm because it was like a storm, but it was a great storm, and if you could ride that storm, you were going to do okay, and I think I rode it fine, and I'm still alive to talk about it, and I just take every day as a blessing, really, I do, and like I said, I got the diabetes on my mom's side. My mom passed away. My dad's still alive at 86 years old. He doesn't have it, but I got it on my mom's side, but all my numbers are good. I got the Portland Trailblazer doctor as my doctor, so he understands athletes and their lives, and I got it. And here I am doing your show, and I appreciate you asking me about the WrestleFanFest in San Francisco on October 18th, 19th, and 20th, 21st. I hope all the fans come out and support it, and I hope that this tape that we're doing right now on your internet show. Just as we'll bring a little bit more of a peace of mind to some of the fans that don't understand or never wrestled before what it was like to go through.
Right. Well, we really appreciate coming on tonight. A lot of names that you mentioned throughout the night are going to be there, like Jimmy Snuka and Marty Jannetty, Missy Hyatt, Killer Tim Brooks.
I'm going to be refereeing a match between Moondog Moretti and Steve Pardini. They were fans when I was there in 1978 in San Francisco, and I helped them get in the business with Red Bastien, and they had their first matches against each other, and they're going to have their last match against each other right now in San Francisco, and I'm going to referee that match.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So it's kind of like a bittersweet. It's kind of like the bitter part is like it's too bad it's the end, but the sweet is it couldn't be sweeter than this. It's really kind of a nice way to go out.
Yeah.
So they grew up in watching the matches in the Cow Palace, and nothing better than to have their last match in the San Francisco area. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're going to do.
Now, we got one last caller here. Who is this?
Hey, it's Jason again.
Oh, Jason's calling back in.
Did I like a memory?
What?
Did I jog your memory?
Yeah. No, I just had a question about your run in the AWA.
Yeah.
What was it like being there at that time period? Were things really as bad as a lot of people say it was during that time period, or was it still a good place to work?
What's the host name of the show again?
Jack.
Jack. Didn't we just talk about this?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. One of the other callers asked about it.
Sorry, my computer froze up. I apologize.
No, that's okay, because I went about 10 minutes about what happened that year, and basically the WWF was taking over everything and took all the good talent around the country, and basically we were just hanging by coattails, and you could see the end was near, but we rode it out for as long as we could, and like I said, Vern was as fair as he could be, as long as he could be.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for calling back in, Jason, though. You can always check the archives, and you can listen to it for yourself.
No, exactly.
All right.
No, but I got to say, I like Minneapolis, too, because my daughter grew up there. She's 29 years old. She's going to be 30 years old in May, and I got a son in Texas, in Dallas, and he's 30 years old. And I just want to say that Minneapolis is my roots. I was born in Omaha, and then I grew up in Dallas, so I was about 3 or 4, and then I went to Minneapolis and basically went to school through the Minneapolis system, and then I was trained by the two of the best, Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson, and when you're trained by them and somebody knows that you're trained by them and you go into a territory, back when there were 20 territories, you had a lot of respect. The wrestlers all respected you and you respected them, and you were taught to respect each other because of the training that you went through. And it was nothing was given to me. I didn't have no relatives in the business. I had nobody that was giving me a handout. I had to earn it all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have it. I got to say something about Greg Gagne and Shane McMahon, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Shane McMahon and Greg Gagne, I see a lot of message boards that talk down about them, but these two guys started at the bottom, and their dads made them do it, just like Vince Sr. made Vince Jr. do the same thing. Everybody, Greg Gagne put rings up, he took them down, he refereed, he did everything. That's what Vern Gagne wanted you to know, all aspects of the business. And Shane McMahon did the same thing. He was a referee in 1990 when he first broke in. He was doing the ring, helping take the ring down. He was doing everything. Now, don't get me wrong, Shane's top executive now, but he paid his dues. Mm-hmm. And the guy, and Greg Gagne paid his dues. And they're both great workers. And Shane McMahon doesn't work on a regular basis, but what he does do, he's very athletic, and he would be a great worker. He's kind of like the Bobby Heenan of the 70s. He can do anything that Bobby Heenan could do, and he just doesn't have to do it all the time because it's his company, and he only has to work once or twice a year. When you do that, you can do that like Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon wanted to be a wrestler, and his dad didn't want him to wrestle. And then when Vince McMahon Sr. died, Vince Jr. got to wrestle because he was his own boss. And if you notice, he's only had probably about 50 matches, but Vince Jr. goes out there at 62 years old and still looks like he's a 42-year-old. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
I respect that. And like I said, his dad did not want him to be a wrestler. And after his dad passed away, God rest his soul, Vince, like when he became his own boss, could do whatever he wanted in his company, and he's made it what it is today. And I got to say, I looked at Vince, and there is nothing he won't do take one for the team. He'll fall off the cage. He'll shave his head. He will do anything to make money. And the guy can't say nothing to the wrestlers. He can look at every wrestler and go, there isn't anything I'll make you do that I wouldn't do, because he'll do the same thing.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, like, if you see Vince McMahon out there, you know he would be there as a performer even if he didn't own the company, because he's so good on camera.
Exactly, he would. And you know what, though? The one thing he didn't have to do was, he does own the company. He's a workaholic. He's a businessman. And, people could say what they want about him. I don't agree with everything he does, but not all of it is his ideas. Don't get me wrong. I said he was always fair to me. And he's always been nice to me all the way up to 2 years ago when I talked to him. He's always nice to me. And, he's never treated me bad. But for 62 years old, he leads by example. He works his butt off. And everybody else, if they don't understand where he's coming from, then they'll never understand what's going on. But like I said, I don't agree with it, like all the tits and ass and all the sex and the things they're selling on wrestling. Because back in our day, we weren't allowed to swear in our interviews. We weren't allowed to have our tights pulled or do sexual innuendos. But now that's all it is today. It's sports entertainment. Back in our day, it was you had to give them wrestling.
Right.
But with all due respect, everything changes with the times. I see football still the same, baseball still the same, basketball still the same, wrestling's changed, and a lot of the football players are copying the wrestlers. I seen a wrestler come into wrestling named Hulk Hogan, and all he had to do was put his hand up to his ear and then lean out to the crowd, and he could get the whole building to come out of their seats from that. And I never saw a wrestler do that before him. And when he found out he could do that with psychology, the sky was a limit. And Hulk Hogan, whether he's worth $50 million or more, he made the most money in the history of wrestling doing the least amount of work.
Oh, definitely.
And God bless everybody that knocks him. Unless you're him, you have no right to do that. You're allowed to do it, but you really don't have the respect for the man unless you understand why he was able to do what he could do, because he could do what he could do. And he is worth every penny, and he made wrestling what it is today, along with Vince McMahon Jr.
Do you think charisma is the key thing to getting over in wrestling? Is something you really can't teach?
I heard one of the guys saying the other day on, I think it was during one of the WrestleMania, one of the videos or something. Ric Flair, I think, said, you can have all the charisma in the world and you don't know how to work. You can know how to work but no charisma. But if you got both, I mean, basically, I could wrestle better than Hulk Hogan. I'm a better wrestler than he'll ever be. But I don't have the genetic look that man had, or the body, and I didn't have the, he just had the push. We didn't all have that worldwide stage that he had too in the day. We had a nationwide stage, but not a worldwide stage. And he was given a push like nobody else. And when you get a push like that, and you look like that, and you can get over with what you do, and that's all you got to do to get over, and you look like you, I don't think they could have done it with anybody else but Hulk Hogan. And there's been a lot of arguments about it and opinions about that. But to me, Hulk Hogan was the guy that paved the road for Vince McMahon to make it what it is today.
That promo you're talking about, Ric Flair said, I believe he was talking about Curt Hennig. It was for the
exactly.
It was for the Hall of Fame.
Had charisma. I tell you, Curt Hennig was in my ear for 6 months in New York, and he was in my ear. He lived right by me, a block away in Vancouver. He was in my ear, and he went to his grave, God rest his soul, saying he learned more from me than anybody else in the business. And I take that as a big compliment. If he was alive today, he would tell you that. He would tell you that Buddy Rose taught me the most. And Shawn Michaels kind of touches on it in his book, that I learned a lot from Buddy and Curt Hennig. Well, Ed Wiskowski and I helped Curt Hennig a lot when he first started. And then I remember Shawn Michaels coming over to Ed Wiskowski's in my apartment, knocking on the door going, can I come and watch some wrestling tapes? And we go, yeah, come on in. And we put on a tape for wrestling, and we explain move to move, hold to hold, why each thing is done and what the reason is, and why it means something, and why you do something, and why you don't do something. And we do this for hours until 5 in the morning we'd watch wrestling and pick apart our matches and our other matches and say what could have been better. And Shawn Michaels used to come with a Burger King bag with a Whopper in it and French fries, asking us to teach him about wrestling. And I respect him for that. And all I could do is when a kid comes up to you, like I used to go up to Ray Stevens when I was a kid going, just like Shawn going, can you teach me about psychology? Can you teach me? And Ray would go, the only reason I'm teaching you, Paul Pershman, Buddy Rose, is because you listen and because you don't make the same mistake twice, and because when I tell you something, you go back. Because he says, I got better things to do than teach you. Because I'm not a teacher, I'm a wrestler. But he says, but when I see you go out there and do what I tell you to do, I don't mind taking the time to help you. And that's what I say to the younger generation of today. If they listen to what we tell them to do, and if they do it, and if they don't do it, then I don't have time for them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand kind of that?
Oh, definitely. It was,
So it was a respect factor. So like I said, all the wrestlers that you see today are thankful to all the wrestlers that came before them, and the ones that came before me, and the ones that came before those before, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It's everybody should be in the Hall of Fame, and there should only be one Hall of Fame, because no wrestler could be in the Hall of Fame if he was in the ring by himself with a camera on him.
Right.
Because you couldn't do it. You needed somebody to win, somebody to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So what about all those guys that lost every night? How come they're not in the Hall of Fame? Because you needed those guys. If you didn't have them, you can't build the mountain. And and you basically, if you're going to build that pyramid, you got to have somebody at the bottom of the pyramid to hold the top of the pyramid up. Mm-hmm. And if Hulk Hogan's at the top of the pyramid, what about all the guys who did the jobs for him all the way up? You needed those guys, and they all basically every wrestler that made a living from wrestling and was able to put food on the table and pay the rent or buy a house and save money and make a living from wrestling should be in the Hall of Fame. And that's my personal opinion. And everybody that I wrestled helped make me, and I helped make them. And it's basically a fraternity of people that got together and tried to make it so we could work 7 nights a week and make money every single night without hurting each other.
Mm-hmm. You think it'd be harder?
That was the whole secret of old school wrestling.
Mm-hmm. I'll let everybody know again, it's WrestleFanFest, in San Francisco. The website's WrestleFanFest.com, and it's October 18th through the 21st.
Right. And there's going to be Q&As. There's going to be a poker thing where fans can pay $100 to play Texas Hold'em, and we're going to be giving out money to the charity. And there's going to be autograph sessions, pictures, books, videos. There's going to be videos rolling of legendary matches from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and 60s in a big hallway at the event. The people are really going to have, if they love wrestling, the place to be October 7th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21 is in San Francisco, and that's WrestleFanFest. And you can go to my website, too, at PlayboyBuddyRose.com, and that'll keep you up to date on everything, too, of what I'm doing personally.
Yeah. All right. Well, we really appreciate coming on here.
I appreciate you having me, guys, and I'd like to come on again before the WrestleFanFest, just because this is planting the seed tonight to just let them know to keep October open. But when we get closer to it, I'm sure there's other wrestlers that like to be on your show plugging the WrestleFanFest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'd love to have you back and talk more about your book when it comes out and everything.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to come on, and you gave me a lot of time tonight. I'm pretty much going hoarse right now. No, it's about 7 minutes to 7 here. And how long are you on till 7?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're on till 8?
We're on to 10 our time, which is 7 your time.
Oh, so you're on for only 6 more minutes.
Yeah, we could go long. We could go long if you want to, but.
Oh no, but no. I just want to say thank you guys for having me on, and I've done radio shows myself, and this is an internet show, so I kind of know what you guys are going through, and I think it's a great job, and you're being very respectful to the wrestlers. I don't do every internet show. I do the ones that are respectful. I've done the Law. I've done yours, and I've done a few others, but there are some I pick and choose that I will not do. And for me to do your show, you have to be respectful. And I got to say, you guys are very respectful.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate it.
And I think I'll put your link up as one of my favorite links to your show on Wednesday nights if you'd like that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put one up for you guys, for Buddy Rose.
You can put up one for PlayboyBuddyRose.com.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And you got it from me, and I thank everybody that called in and asked me any questions, and be looking for the book around August or September. It's going to be called Shoot to Work. Do you get the title? Shoot
Oh,
to
yeah.
work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was shooting to work. In other words, I was not working to shoot. I was shooting to work. And that's what I did best. And there's not a wrestler that'll tell you. I never hurt a wrestler. I never potatoed a wrestler. And I don't think any fan will ever say that it looked phony when I was in the ring, when I was hitting or wrestling a wrestler. They never said they could see through my work. I'm proud of that.
Mm-hmm. All right, can we keep you here for 1 second?
Yeah, I guess so. You need my address where you're going to send the check?
This is the rocker Marty Jannetty, and you're listening to IYHWrestling.com.